What's going on, guys? This is Pat here, and I am going to talk to you about the 10 worst movies of 2019. Well, more than 10, but you get the drift. Yeah. This is probably going to be a longer video than my best of the year list, because I just have a lot more fun talking about bad movies overall, and I saw a lot of bad movies, so many bad movies. So many bad movies. But anyway, I'll get into that more and more, but I want to throw out some dishonorable mentions. Movies that almost made my list, but they weren't bad enough to put on this list. Let's start off with The Art of Racing in the Rain. If you're worried about crying in a movie because you see a dog and you're worried the dog's gonna die, well, don't worry, because this is an emotionless movie in pretty much every way. It's an emotionally manipulative movie without any emotion in any of the performances, where Kevin Costner just sounds so bored saying words that someone from Yale would probably say. The Goldfinch, a 2.5-hour movie with really nowhere to go, all for a message that you can probably get from a bumper sticker and probably get a lot more from that. Charlie's Angels and Men in Black International. I kind of forgot those movies came out. Brightburn. I already mentioned this in my top 10 most disappointing video, but I'll just say it has a great concept and some of the worst execution I've seen in a movie in years. 5 Feet Apart. If you just take the script for The Fault in Our Stars and just change the names of all the characters and change the disease that all the characters have, you would get 5 Feet Apart. The Kitchen. Take that movie Widows from a couple years ago with Viola Davis in the lead role and dumb it down and have a more uneven tone and just don't make anything subtle and don't make anything interesting. And you would get The Kitchen. The Lion King 2019 remake. I already talked about it in my disappointing video as well. But again, I'll reiterate, it's a movie that tries so hard to be a realistic take that it forgets any spectacle of the original and tries so hard to be as faithful to the original as possible without really realizing what made that movie special in the first place. It's visually impressive, but after a while, it's just not that impressive anymore. It bored me. I felt nothing during this movie. Again, visually impressive, and with a couple good performances, that's it. Wonder Park. This is a movie that's probably the worst animated movie of the year, shockingly. It's all over the place. It's probably would be best suited for a Pixar movie, honestly. But it's just rung through the ringer, and let's just throw it all out on the screen and hope something sticks. None of it sticks. The animation's not great. The story isn't great. The performances aren't that great. It's a little all over the place. Don't watch Wonder Park. And the last 2 movies I do want to mention are Serenity and The Fanatic. Without a doubt, these are some of the worst movies of the year. But there's something about both these movies that I just find so hilarious. They just put a smile on my face. And I can't quite put them on this list. Like, Serenity has the most absurd plot ever, with some of the worst performances of the year, particularly from Anne Hathaway, who plays Jessica Rabbit, femme fatale. It's so hilariously bad. And with The Fanatic, John Travolta plays this insanely ridiculous fanatic. He's so over the top. It's hilarious. I can't put these on my worst of the year list, because, unlike most of these movies, those movies made me so happy because of how bad they were. I was laughing in my seat for the most part. And with the movies I just mentioned and my next 10, that will not be the case. Not at all. So let's start off with my number 10, The Hustle. This movie isn't bad because it's a female-led remake of a movie that originally starred men. This is a bad movie because it feels both ashamed and proud of the fact that it's a remake. Because throughout the movie, they keep saying, oh, women do stuff better than men. Men are so stupid compared to women, and women will do things better than men. And what do? They basically copy the original movie verbatim, with unfunny gags, really offensive jokes at times, surprisingly, which, for a movie that's claiming to be progressive and moving forward, it's shocking how bad this movie is. There's a scene you saw in the trailer, Rebel Wilson pretends she's blind, and this guy and she does this to impress the targets, and it's like, oh, his grandmother's actually blind. So it's like, okay, that's one of the few smart things in this movie. Then they go up to his hotel room, and he's like, I want to make you happy. I want to cure your blindness. Of course, Rebel Wilson's like, no, I don't want that. So he finds out, hey, there's not only someone nearby, there's someone in the hotel. And he goes to the first guy he sees. I should mention that it's a man. And he tells him that, oh, this woman who I just met is the most amazing person in the world. She's blind, and I want you to cure her blindness. And he doesn't understand, so he starts coming onto him, he starts touching him inappropriately. And Anne Hathaway comes up to the main guy and goes, excuse me, I'm the doctor here. Don't make horrible stereotypes like that. the movie that just insinuated that, you know, gay guys are stereotypes is saying stereotypes is wrong. Stereotypes are wrong about women. I don't mind if you want to make a movie that's, you know, progressive or forward-thinking, but you need to be progressive and forward-thinking while you're making it. And that's like another rant video about how I feel about these female-led remakes, but whatever. Yeah, it's on top of that, it's just not funny. At number 9, I am putting Jexi. Adam Devine gets a new phone that won't leave him alone, that's basically taking control of his life. And it is just not funny. It is just stupid in pretty much every way imaginable. Not one funny gag in this movie. And a lot of the characters just do really stupid things. Like I mentioned, he walks to work, and during one of his walks, he breaks his phone. Then the next day, he gets Jexi on his phone, and then he gets into his car. So why didn't he have this car to begin with? I don't know. It's just bad. It really is bad. At number 8, I am putting Countdown, a very unscary movie that was released for Halloween that probably should have been released to Netflix back in 2015. So, yeah, this movie does mainly kind of have an interesting idea where it's like, oh, this app will tell you when you're gonna die. And basically people try to, you know, beat the clock, essentially, or, you know, to kill this app, essentially. And by the end, none of it mattered. None of it mattered. Like, okay, so the acting's bad, the story's bad, the scares are not that scary, except for like one intentional scare that kind of worked. None of the humor worked. It was very awkward. They have a really clumsy message about, you know, sexual assault, and it's just so awkwardly forced in there, which probably isn't the best metaphor to use, but I'm just going with it. And again, as I mentioned, it's all for nothing. I'm just going to spoil it. The main girl defeats the demon that was in the app by sacrificing herself before her time of death. And basically, her sister in the movie, she's like, no, I'm crying. Oh, put this adrenaline in me so you can bring me back. So, you know, the main girl is brought back to life after she sacrificed herself. So I'm like, won't that just bring the demon back? And at the end, they're visiting their mom's grave. And then all of a sudden, Countdown 2.0 is active. And yeah, that's what I thought. It's stupid. It's really stupid. Like, you could have a really great idea here, and you just go in pretty much every bad direction this movie could have gone into. At number 7, I am putting Cats. Yikes. Yikes. There are images from this movie that are just burned in my mind. I can't unsee this movie at any point. The music's fine, the production design's fine, some of the performances are okay, but it's just so disturbing to watch in pretty much every way imaginable. Again, I read this, I'm gonna say it again here, just watch it with any form of drug possible. I think that's the only way you can really watch this movie without, you know, just wanting to rip your eyes out. Or claw your eyes out, I should say. At number 6 is Replicas. Yes, this was Keanu Reeves' year. He was in John Wick 3, he was in Always Be My Maybe, he's made various appearances, and, you know, that even with, you know, Keanu Reeves and all of his awesomeness, can't forgive Replicas. Yikes. This was a movie released in 2019 that was made in 2016. That's not a joke. That actually happened. And this plot is everything about this movie is just so all over the place, and nothing even feels really resolved or logically explained. Like, okay, Keanu Reeves is a scientist who's trying to bring human consciousness into androids, essentially. And at one point, you know, he's with his family, they get into a car accident, Keanu Reeves is the only survivor, so immediately he thinks, I'm gonna put my family into robots. And, like, there's no emotion in any of it whatsoever, and it goes all over the place. Like, he pretends to be everyone in his family to just assume that, you know, they're all dead. Just to make everyone think they're still alive, and never really goes anywhere. The plot goes nowhere. The ending makes absolutely no sense. It's kind of funny for a little bit, but overall, it's still bad. Like, again, Keanu Reeves and all of his awesomeness can't save Replicas. It came out all the way back in January of last year, and I cannot forget how bad that movie was. At number 5, I'm putting The Intruder. For the longest time, this was my number 1 worst of the year, but I saw 4 movies that were surprisingly worse. Dennis Quaid gives a hilariously over-the-top performance in this movie that was probably reserved for someone like Nicolas Cage, but even he turned this movie down. This movie is so bad and so dumb in so many ways. where Dennis Quaid sells his house to a nice young couple, and he basically keeps coming by to do stuff, and like every character in this movie is dumb. Like Michael Ealy, his character is really dumb. Like he accuses his wife, played by Megan Good, of flirting with Dennis Quaid's character, and you know he's off flirting at his job with various women. That makes no sense. Also, Megan Good, she is very sweet towards Dennis Quaid's character. She thinks he's so charming and so sweet, even though he literally murders a deer right in front of her. Yeah, he murdered Bambi's mom right in front of her. And the pacing is just atrocious. It's a 100-minute movie, but it feels like 3 hours. It just takes forever to end. Like, characters do things way too late. It's like about an hour into this hour and 40-minute movie, Michael Ealy's like, I should look up this guy. Now you decide to look up this guy. And none of it really mattered in the end. They play this obnoxious rap song that was over the top. It was so loud. I don't even know why that song was in there. And it's just not interesting. It's not thrilling. It's not intense. It's just stupid. The Intruder is just stupid. At number 4, I am putting Black Christmas, the remake that no one asked for this year. Well, one of the remakes no one asked for. But this was a movie that was initially made to be an R-rated movie that was trimmed down to be a PG-13 movie. A movie about women who are no longer being silenced or standing up to men is literally censored. With very cheap scares, very horrible characters, nothing really makes sense, especially in the last act. It's a movie that is literally Black Christmas in name only. Coming from someone who's never seen Black Christmas and looked it up and looked up this one and a new one, and I'm like, what? Like, why was this movie even Black Christmas at all? Why was this movie even in theaters? It's a movie that it's basically just going to add fuel to a fire that really needs to be put out, and movies like this are not helping. At number 3, I'm putting the movie that I thought was the bottom of the barrel, but surprisingly, there are 2 movies that are worse. Playing with Fire. Just unfunny in every way. Horrible characters, horrible gags, just disturbing things in this movie, like, you know, scenes where John Cena is forced to change a diaper is disturbing, where John Cena skins a squirrel. Very awkwardly done things as well, like when he's like rescuing the kids at the end for one reason or another. It looks so over the top. It looks like from a really bad 90s movie. And honestly, that's probably the best way to describe it. Playing with Fire is a movie from the 90s, or again, from the 2000s, like from that age where Vin Diesel was in The Pacifier, or Ice Cube wasn't already there yet. It's like this movie probably would have fit in perfectly. That would have been the trifecta of tough guys doing family-friendly movies. And nothing in this movie's funny. Like, nothing works. The heart is not really there. It's all over the place with horrible characters. Just Playing with Fire is just awful. At number 2, I am putting The Haunting of Sharon Tate. Yes, Quentin Tarantino did not do the most offensive thing to Sharon Tate this year. It was these people. This movie, it takes the tragedy of what happened to Sharon Tate and various other people and turns it into a horror movie that is so horribly done in a lot of ways. The scares are not scary at all. It's offensive, it's dull, it's boring, it's all over the place. It's weirdly, like, they do, like, you know, the straight narrative with Hilary Duff as Sharon Tate, and they also had documentary footage of this movie too, so it's odd. And like Hilary Duff, you know, you can tell she's trying to give a good performance, but none of it works. It's really shocking that they did this movie even. Like, this is probably one of the most insulting movies of the year. Again, with, you know, movies like, you know, Black Christmas. This is probably the more insulting movie of the year. But it doesn't beat my number 1. My number 1 worst movie of 2019. I just saw this a couple days ago along with, you know, Haunting of Sharon Tate. But watched this movie a couple days ago. The worst movie of 2019 was After. Oh my god. Oh my god. What can I say about this movie? It's the worst. It really is the worst. Like, the shocking thing about all these other movies I mentioned, they at least feel like other movies. This one doesn't. It's a movie that sets up a scene, then does a music video, essentially, and then scene, music video, and that's the duration of this movie. This isn't even a real movie. It's a music video, essentially. It's like a 90-minute music video where these two college kids, you know, lose their virginity to each other, or at least the girl does, of course. And, like, that's the thing, too. This movie is 50 Shades of Grey for high schoolers, college students, and I'm like, no. Like, this was literally based on One Direction fan fiction. That is not a joke. Like, Harry Styles in that fan fiction is turned into Hardin Scott. Like, try saying that name without laughing. Meanwhile, Tessa Young, like, get it. Other characters that are based on, like, name only of other One Direction characters. And it is just shocking what they do in this movie. The things that are just absolutely horrendous. Like, not only just the film itself, it's like the characters are disgusting. These are some of the worst characters I've seen in a movie ever. That says a lot considering the movies I sat through this year. The acting's bad, the writing is bad, the editing is bad, the cinematography is really bad in this movie. Everything in this movie sucks. Like, everything about After is horrible. Like, and I hear there's 2 more entries to, you know, complete the 50 Shades of Grey trifecta right there, based off fan fiction. You know, it was a series. They had to change the names of the characters. Just stop. Just stop. That's all I gotta say. So those were my worst movies of 2019. What was the worst movie of 2019 to you? Comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat, and